Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.2.2, in which I am attempting to make Kerbals a multiplanetary species. And what we have here is the Duna Express tug, which is carrying 4 collection containers for Carborundum, which we are going to be gathering around the sun. So let's see where we are in our trajectory here. We are headed down to about what I'm hoping is, that's actually a little bit higher than I wanted it to be, but we're looking for about 5.4 megameters. Is that the right term? I'm not sure that it is, but 5.4 billion kilometers over, 5.4 billion meters over the surface of the sun, which is where all the Carborundum's at. So we are going to circularize at that point so that we can make sure that we gather as much Carborundum as we need, and then we'll be able to fly back out from wherever we end up for how long that collection takes, back out to Kerbin, where we can drop off our Carborundum containers and hopefully they don't explode or anything. Yeah, so it's going to be about a 5 kilometer per second burn that we will be doing in about 45 days. So everybody, I believe, is all packed up and ready to go. We have a whole bunch of expired messages here, like on the moon cache base and whatever, but the catch-up mechanics will take care of them if we ever were to go back, and I imagine all of these things would do the same. That's kind of the thing that I don't love, is that this will not take into account there's no background processing, right? So it doesn't actually say like, oh, by the way, you actually have this amount. Like, I'm going to forecast out into the future how long your supplies and your supply production will last. That would be cool, but I think that's kind of asking a lot. So I think everything's fine for everybody that needs to be fed and watered across the system, which will be the people out in the orbit of Duna, and then our people on our various bases in the Kerbin system. So I think everybody's going to be fine. So we are just going to warp on ahead to this maneuver node in 45 days. So let me just make sure I have that correct. There we go. It's a 90-second burn, so we can go about a minute out from that. That's fine, and off we go. We're dropping in closer to the sun. Okay, we're about 3 days out now, so I am actually going to deploy the collector, and we are going to see exactly where the best point is for collection of this Carborundum. So there we go, our Carborundum Bussard collector is deployed. It says it is inactive, so let's open that. And we are getting a Carborundum rate of 0.125, and we still appear to be going up in that value, so we are going to continue on down. And we are collecting a good amount of Carborundum from the local environment around the sun. And we need... let me see, something like, so that's 37,000, and then about 20,000 per container here, so that's 2468, and then it's about 120,000 units of Carborundum, but we are not, in fact, filling this thing up completely, because as I may have mentioned previously, the mission of this vessel is to collect as much, get warping while we're doing this, is to collect as much Carborundum as possible. However, there's a maximum limit of about 20,000-ish units based on my, not testing, but based on my math, for how much these things are going to be able to carry and still be able to get home safely. I've done some testing, not testing, I keep saying testing, but that's not what I've done. Basically just doing the math with stage recovery and with the way that actually allows you to see what the parachutes are going to be able to hold, and based on my Kerbal Engineer math on what these Rhino engines are going to be able to put out as far as thrust, with that heavy load of a tremendous number of a tremendous amount of Carborundum in each of these tanks. So 20,000 is what we're shooting for, long story short. And so we want only 20,000 per in each of these, and then this one here in the middle on this drive, on the tug itself can have as much as it wants. And that's something that we're going to be using in the future, because I would like to use this vessel afterwards to bring modules out to Duna, because we're definitely not going to be using the warp drive for that. We are going to be not slow boating, because it is a torch drive, but we are going to be relatively slowly bringing out each of our modules. So, all right, so my Carborundum rate is only increasing as we are falling down. So we want to, let's just keep going, see how good this gets as we're collecting. And just a tremendous amount of goodies is coming our way. With the, oh, you know what would have been helpful is an actual Carborundum detector. Derp, derp. That would have given me a better way to measure this rather than just seeing what the rate was. But anyways, we're getting a ton of delicious Carborundum, tons and tons of it that we were able to scoop from the local environment. I like to imagine that there's a particulate gas of Carborundum just in a band that is held here by gravity, the gravity of all the different bodies. And it just stays at a very particular place because of the influence of all the different bodies in the system, just like the asteroid belt out on the inside of the gas giants' solar orbits in our solar system, and I suppose the asteroid belt around Dres here in the Kerbin system, which I guess is actually the same place relatively. But yeah, so I imagine that's what this is, and we are out here and we are scooping it up to put a whole bunch of particle physicists out of a job back home. But in any case, we are still increasing in our amount, and we are hitting our periapsis now, so I think we may as well just circularize, because even with this blistering fast collection rate, I don't think that we're going to be able to get this on one pass and head right back out. I think we just as well slow ourselves down, capture into this orbit, spend as much time as we need to very precisely gather the Carborundum that we're going to need for our future missions. Because what this is going to represent is a tremendous amount of funds, first of all, but then it's also going to be the Carborundum that we need for me not to feel guilty about loading it in the VAB. And then we'll be able to, from there, launch other torch drive related ships to send out all of our gear out to Duna, because that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to be the primary method here. Is warp drives are pretty neat, but they have a very particular usage. They're very, how to put it? I need to be able to fit things inside of the warp bubble in addition to, all of the support mechanisms for the actual vessel. So generator, radiators, engines, crew supplies, that sort of thing. And then we have to worry about being able to fit all of that with the Alcubierre drive in the middle, and I find that that's challenging. I don't have a 2.5 meter Alcubierre drive yet. That's something that I'll be getting pretty quick when I get to when I bring this home. That's going to be one of my first unlocks. But we're not going to be switching to a primarily warp drive fueled regime. Like our fleet is not going to be all warp drives all the time. I think that's a little bit silly. We're still going to be using chemical thrusters in the form of these torch drives for now, I think, because it is just dead simple to strap a torch drive to something and then make it, as you would make anything else. And that requires me to refuel around the sun, which is kind of neat, as opposed to just having infinite exotic matter that is generated based on your electric charge. Well, in any case, we are here. My value that I'm looking for, it kind of lags out when I hover over various things, just because there's so many different little items that have electric charge that it goes, there's so many things that I need to point out. But yeah, with Carborundum, we're looking for Yeah, like I said, somewhere around 120,000 units, so that should take a little while. So let's save our game, and we'll check back in as we orbit. So I'm going to face myself prograde so we can scoop up all the delicious Carborundum that is in our path and use this as a shield. Alright, so we have now 115,000 units of Carborundum, which is millions of funds worth of exotic matter gathered from around the sun. And we actually have more than we need because they were... well, it's not that we have more than we need, it's that we have more than I wanted in each of these radial tanks, because it just kind of gathered things evenly. So now we are going to try to very carefully empty these outside tanks into the middle tank. And we're going to stop there at about 20,000. Then we're going to lock these tanks so that they don't fill up any further. And we're going to let this middle tank, well, before we let this middle tank fill up all the way, which I would very much like to do, it looks like we still have a pretty good thrust-to-weight ratio. I'm seeing 1.7 here. Carborundum is not light. It is a heavy fluid based on the type of containers that MKS lets us use, because it only goes in the spherical tanks. So it's either a pressurized gas or a fluid of some sort. But yeah, it's not heavy. It's actually rather dense. And increases our mass really rather significantly. So we are going to, see if we can't fill this up all the way. But before we do that, we want to see when and how we are getting back. So if we set Kerbin as a target... Nope, that's not even close. All right, so let's see. There we go. That's getting a little bit closer. Yeah, we are moving very fast relative to the sun, so we're definitely going to need to get some lead time, I guess, or pick a particular time that we can actually meet up. So it's going to be a little while before we get there. Let's see, how much delta V do I have? I have about 17,000 meters per second of delta V with all of this weight that we're carrying and not using, because we are actually restricted at this point by the ore, not the Carborundum, because this is something that I've mentioned before, that the torch drives, the fusion torch drives, use a tremendous amount more ore than they use Carborundum. So, as opposed to the fusion drives, which the more Carborundum you add, the further you go, you actually need a lot more ore than you need Carborundum to get these torch drives to go. So this is all dead weight. It doesn't give me millions of meters per second of delta V. So we have about 16,000 meters per second there, so we can actually split that up. And let's see, how long until... Okay, so this is our return trip, 251 days. And this is our next conjunction, 316. So the two planets are still pretty far apart, Kerbin and Duna. So we can wait a little bit. We have a little bit of time. So a slow trip is actually not the worst thing in the world. So let's see, that'll be about 180 days. I think that's probably okay. I don't see any real reason to hurry this up, especially if we want to be careful with our reserves. So let's plan on that for now. Let's see, how do we get this a little bit closer? Oh, look at that, we already have a encounter right there. Beautiful, that's easy. So now it's just a matter of tweaking our orbit just slightly so that we can meet up. Alright, that puts us at about a 300,000 meter periapsis over Kerbin, and roughly equatorial, because that's where we want to drop these, is on the equatorial plane, so that they can drop into the Kerbal Space Center, hopefully pretty easily. I make no promises about that, because I have never done this before. There we go, 249, that seems pretty good. And what is this going to cost us to actually circularize at this point? So at the periapsis, we're going to go ahead and circularize another 2,100 meters per second, which is no problem whatsoever. Beautiful. Alright, so let's plan on this. We have to just wait another 69 days before we have the transfer window open up to get back home to Kerbin. Alright, we are warping into our burn, so let's go ahead and point ourselves maneuverward. God, this SAS is ridiculous. I mean, I know this is exactly what it's for, but it just makes me so happy that a vessel this huge, this thing is mass 1,300 tons, and it just whips around like a tiny little 0.625 meter vessel. It's just delightful. But yeah, we've actually collected all of our Carborundum. We have an absolutely full tank here, so we can go ahead and close our collector. Actually, why not leave that open now that I think about it? Because that way we can collect a little bit to refill the tanks on our way out. And we can close this, and we're coming down to this burn. Whoa, and I missed it. We'll fix it. I'm sure we'll be able to figure that out. But yeah, so now we are on our way back to Kerbin, which is fantastic. This portion of the trip has been fairly easy. Torch drives are pretty fantastic. I didn't give them too much credence at first. I thought that the fusion drives would be all I ever really wanted to use, but these are incredibly efficient and incredibly mass capable. They have a very high mass fraction, I suppose, for what they are capable of lifting, which kind of makes them magic engines, and that's not great that there's one engine that kind of is superior to everything. So yeah, that's not as fantastic. I don't plan on using only these from now on every single everything, but it's really hard to argue with 10,000 second specific impulse and 37,500 kilonewtons of thrust. So yeah, a little bit hard to argue with, but I'm still going to be using the other engines and using other things to kind of make this a more well-rounded sort of fleet. Because we still need to get things into atmospheres, we still need to launch and take off and rendezvous and dock and get things down to the surface and move things around and all that sort of thing, and that is best handled with a broad range of tools, not just the one thing. These torch drives are fantastic for the one thing that I believe that they are designed for, and that is interplanetary round-trip tugs, which is exactly what this thing is right here. I strongly believe in having a nice broad toolbox, so to speak. Oh, it looks like our orbit is just about fine. We're a little bit off, so we can fix this right here. Periapsis circularize, and there we go. I think I'm trying to rendezvous with something. I don't know why I'm targeting it, but that's fine. But yeah, anyways, I strongly believe in having a toolbox to meet the needs of a variety of situations, and torch drives fit the tug situation so nicely, just so very nicely, that I have a hard time wanting to use anything else. Although with all this Carborundum, now maybe we can start using fusion drives and so forth as well. Alright, so on our way out, we are going to fill up our Carborundum tank all the way back up, and then we can close this Carborundum collector and retract. Beautiful. Fantastic. So we are all set until such time as we arrive back in the orbit of Kerbin. Okay, and we return to the Duna Express tug. After doing something that still gives me the willies, we time warped forward for 90 days until it is just about at Kerbin's Sphere of Influence. So let's jump inside Kerbin's Sphere of Influence and make sure that our trajectories and so forth are correct, as it looks like we've got this just about right. What we're going to want to do on the way in is make sure our inclination is just about correct. So when we get to what we gauge to be the ascending or descending node, not sure I'm going to have any... Ooh, actually, hold on. There we go. That's going to tell us where our ascending node is. Zoop. And then right about here-ish, we will go ahead and correct our inclination, because we are going to be dropping these tanks to a place that is relatively equatorial. Alright, and now that we have reached that location, which should be roughly close to the ascending or the descending node, we should be able to now go ahead and correct our inclination, which we see is about 2.3 degrees, and hoping for the best here. There we go, it brings it on down 1, and there we go. About 0.3 is pretty much fine. Alright, so now that our inclination has been just about fixed, we are about 30 seconds away from periapsis, so I think it's time for us to just go ahead and burn to correct our orbit and bring ourselves into a place where we can capture. Alright, so we are bringing our orbit down. We are getting pretty close. Let's see. Should just be a little bit more. But yeah, one of the things I love about these torch drives is even with all this mass, I'm still pulling 3 Gs on this burn. And 350, 300. Okay, so that is good. And we don't need to actually have that targeted. What we're looking for is the Kerbal Space Center. So I think now, before I save my game and make preparations for this, I think we should make sure all of our Kerbals are alive at our various bases and so forth. So let's go ahead and make a little round trip. Should be pretty quick, and then we'll get right back to this. And everybody's alive here in the moon cache base. That's pretty exciting. Let's see, I don't think we have any planetary logistics for the moon. I think everything just stays local because I don't have any real need to send it off anywhere. But let's see, we have stuff and things and a full thing of supplies. Yeah, so we've actually been creating supplies as I thought. Yeah, so moon cache base going very well as a little tourist destination. Ooh, I did want to see actually, what is the moon? Yeah, look at that, 280% almost with our geology rating. Geology, botany, and colonization, they're all at slightly different values because we have different specializations here, but yeah, so that's increasing things, being a gigantic multiplier, becoming a pain in the butt for supply throttling and so forth in the future, but we don't have to worry about that. Let's just check the colony rewards. Look at that, 3.3 million funds for that, which is pretty darn cool, I think. All right, here on Minty Station. Oh no, everybody's homesick. Really? Their hab time has indeed expired. Oh dear, I'm gonna actually have to send, don't I have colony supplies for this? Or I guess I'm gonna have to parse them through a, what do you call it, a med bay. Alright, well, I don't know what else to say about that, but it looks like we are stuck. We have every single crew person on the Minty Station has become a tourist, except with the exception of Valentina, because she is a pilot and therefore is unaffected by homesickness. So yeah, I thought for sure that I had this better planned out for these guys. I thought they had years and years, but I suppose we are going to need to send some sort of rescue to get these guys back, because and that's probably going to have to take the form of dropping in a med bay and cycling in the different Kerbals that are tourists with a fresh scientist or medic. Because yeah, we're kind of out of luck otherwise. I can't actually EVA them to get them onto a different vessel. I would either have to do some shenanigans with docking to this to the Minty Station and then moving over Kerbals that way and then bringing them home, but the alternative, I think, is using a med bay. So I think that's actually a good idea that we will have to look into in the very near future, is getting a med bay put together for Minty Station that can heal these Kerbals. So maybe some kind of mobile situation that I can move back and forth. But what I forgot to do was check colony rewards. So let's take a look. 3.4 million, so just about the same as the moon cache base. Okay, now onward. Okay, and finally we are here at the Minmus shipyards, and I forgot I have an exotics return capsule that I need to send out, so I should do that as well. But everybody here seems to be doing much better than over on Minty Station. We have a year, yeah, about a year-ish of habitation time left here. Do I have a, do I actually have a medical bay on this base? Because I don't think I have one. No. Kerbitat, Colonization Module, Training Academy, Kerbitat, Agriculture. No. Okay, so yeah, our plan remains in effect. We will have to go do that and bring over a med bay and maybe somebody from over here. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, so a couple things before we get moving on. Let's go ahead and check our colony rewards. 24 funds. Why was it only 24 funds? I didn't check it over here, did I? Oh my goodness. Okay, sure, that's fine. How about material kits? Do I actually have any material kits now? Looks like I have some to me. But did we push any to logistics? The planetary kind. Yes, we do have a bunch in planetary logistics. Very nice. So, we should be able to finish up stuff in the construction. Construct kit, and it's complete. I don't know what's happening, but that seems to be a thing that is happening lately. Yeah, so since everybody's okay, and all my bases are fine, and wait, there's one more thing, is the Starlifter shuttle. Before I launch this, let's go check on them. Alright, and everybody's doing just fine here on the Starlifter shuttle as well. Fantastic! Alright, so we are back at Minmus Shipyard. So we're just going to save our game very quick. Now that we've made sure everybody is fine, everybody's not dead. We have some mutinying Kerbals back at Minty Station, but that's fine. We'll figure that out. That gives us an opportunity to try out one more feature that we had not tried out before. And in the meantime, in the spirit of bringing home lots and lots of resources, construction windows, launch! And here's the final one of these lovely, lovely things. So we are going to auto strut, make sure everything is good to go here. And then we are going to use local logistics to fill her on up with exotic minerals, fuel, and oxidizer. Ta-da! Cool. Okay, so now we shall save one more time, and then 3, 2, 1, launch! Okay, so you've seen me land these. I think we're all clear that I can actually do that, so I will go ahead and get this one back home, and we will go look at bringing home those giant Carborundum containers instead. But unfortunately, I am actually fresh out of time, so we're just gonna have to end it here. If you enjoyed this episode, please share and subscribe, and I will see you next time.